Today I'm going to talk about how I use clay in blacksmithing. It's a good illustration as to how steel moves when it's at 1500 degrees, kind of in a plastic state between a solid and a liquid. So now we're going to take this out to the anvil, and I'll first show you kind of a demonstration of the terminology and show you how this moves under a hammer on the anvil. Okay, so here we are out in the shop, and we have this square piece of clay. And this is called a cross peen hammer because of this flat peen on the back. If it were twisted the other way, it'd be a straight peen, and then of course you've all heard of a ball peen. This is your traditional blacksmith's hammer. And to put a point on something, let's say I wanted to start making a knife or arrowhead or anything, or even a fire poker. I got to draw a taper on this. So to do that, you strike here at an angle like so. It's easier to do it like this on the edge of the anvil, but for demonstration purposes I can do this. So you just rotate it 90 degrees and give it an angled hammer blow. This works too. And if you notice, it's getting pointed and longer. So that's what I mean by forging a taper. And then let's say that's the length of what that I want on this particular piece. To make it grow wider faster than it grows longer, I use this. Of course, I have corresponding dies for my press, which I've shown in previous videos. But to do that, you just make a series of little grooves in it, like so. You can already see how it's kind of widening out. And then when those are smoothed out, it gets a lot wider yet, but doesn't grow as fast in length as the tapering. And now let's say I was making a knife out of this. I'd kind of straighten it out a little bit, like so. And then work the handle. There again, I'd taper it. And you can also kind of push this like you do the steel. Of course, this is going to be a very weird knife, but kind of work out the handle. And then I can clean that up like this. And then, say it was a single edge one, I'd curve it around the horn, edge down, so that when I went and packed my edge, which is a series of blows along here, it'll curl out straight. And then you can just straighten it like so. But there's reasons why forging works, because I like it better than stock removal. That's where you have a distal taper running down the back of the blade like so, because you've tapered it out. And then you actually packed the edge in and created a bevel that way too. And to me, this is just faster and easier than taking a belt grinder and doing all that work. But now we'll go back in the house. Okay, so we've got my anvil here, the square bar of clay, and cross peen hammer again. And the top die of my press mimics the face of the hammer, obviously. And then I do have a peen die for my press. And I have another one that's kind of a dual purpose, well, they're all many-purposed. But this is a drawing die. The piece I need to prototype is part of this Klingon blade, and it's the guard itself. So I'm going to use the elasticity of clay to see how much of this bar, big chunk of 01 tool steel, I need to cut off to forge this piece out of. So the first thing I do is record the size of the piece of clay because that will determine the size of bar I start with. So I know this is 1 inch square, and it is 4 1/4 inches long. Okay, for starters, we're going to take the drawing die. I'll turn it sideways so you can see how this will work. And I'm going to forge that taper. So we'll squish it. Check it to the paper. We're getting there. It's, as you can see, taking on that shape, or maybe you can't. I'm taking on that shape. Work it down a little bit. Measure it. She's a little wide, so that looks so. I don't know how well you can see here, but we have our taper starting that way to match that one, and we have it started that way to match that one. Let's keep it smoothed up here. So that's kind of how the dies will be used. I can speed this process up by just using my fingers. Start to put tapers in it just to see where it's going to go. Set up for that. Okay, so then we have that. Make a reference mark where the end of the piece is going to be. Okay. And now to facilitate the bend. And what I've got here is a rough shape, sort of matching that part of the drawing. And I know there's some square details and some other things, but the idea is that the thickness is there and that the length is there. So now I know a 1 by 1 by 4 1/4 inch piece of square stock will make one side of this guard. They're supposed to spring out from the handle. It'll be really neat. But another thing I need to focus on as well is this groove down the center. As you notice, my die for that does not come anywhere near that shape. So I need to make a custom one for this exact project. So I need to basically trace or cut this center piece out, lay it out on some plate, torch it out, clean it up with a grinder, weld it onto my base plates, fit it in the press, and then I will actually take the clay and see how far it will make the blade wider and longer when I press it in there. And then I can work down that blank I've been dealing with and get it exactly and conserve as much material as I can when I'm forging it down. I'm gonna grab it quick. You'll notice this from the other couple videos. We're actually using this print for the blade. So as you can see, it's almost wide enough to just cut it out. I left that in there as a fail-safe in case something that didn't work. But I need to cut out that die and then see how much wider it makes this in clay so that I can forge this down to the point where I can press that groove in. Another thing, this is not related to the Klingon knife, but it's another project I'm working on. It seems like I have like 3 of those at a time. But I'm doing a wrought iron railing as well. And this is an impression of the cap rail. And I didn't know what size or kind to get, so I took an impression and got a catalog from King Architectural Metal and matched this up to their end view and ordered a couple sections of material that are almost exact. So that's another way clay can be used for this stuff. And of course, lost wax casting, you sculpt the whole piece out of clay, cast a wax copy of that, stick it in the investment, burn it out, and then pour in your bronze or whatever. So many, many uses, and it's cheap. For me to forge one of these and guess and rework and guess, of course, the more you do it, the more you kind of get an eye for what size bar you'll need. But it's for those who are beginning and just learning how to do this, this is invaluable. I can remember being about 13, 14, and I have this piece of scrap. I want to make this out of it. Well, let's roll this clay out to that size of that piece of scrap and see what we can make. So it can be really enjoyable. Thank you.